Gentlemen, the time has come once again to discuss things.
Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of Geeky Gentlemen. I'm Sid Partu. Joining me today is...
A Geek for Fun.
And Steve Baxey.
Indeed. We're here today to continue holiday month with something that didn't end up being very holiday-y at all. We all kind of assumed it would be, and then it wasn't. And that is the three new Doctor Who specials starring one David Tennant and Catherine Tate, with the revival of the show under the leadership of Russell T Davies kind of kicking back off. And they just ended, what is it, last Saturday as this is being recorded, a week ago if you're listening to this day of publishing. And then I realized, oh, there's another Christmas special. Maybe we should have pushed this back. But I was like, nah, fuck it. It's too good. We gotta talk about this shit. So here we are.
I feel like there's enough in the first three to talk about on their own before we even get to whatever the Christmas special is going to be.
I agree. I
sure.
think these are very much their own thing that kind of should be thought about separately. They do feel like very intentionally different.
Yeah. So it's interesting to get David Tennant back. I want to tell a quick story. Back when Alfie was here, right at the end of 2021, I was driving him back to the airport, and it's like a good hour drive or so, and we're talking Doctor Who, and he asks me the question of, if you were put in charge of Doctor Who right now, what would you do? And I like half jokingly was like, well, I'd get David Tennant back. And he just like rolls his eyes and goes, what? No, you can't do that. You can't go back to David Tennant. And then shortly after that, we got the announcement that, no, David Tennant's coming back to play the Doctor again.
Yeah.
So I just want to firmly establish that I never pretend to be objective on this show. But any sense of objectivity I could possibly have is fully out the window right now, because this is like purely wish fulfillment. It was me, Alfie, Leah, and Russell T Davies in that car.
It was.
He was also flying back to England and just needed needed to hitch a ride, and that was just how it went.
Marking somewhere in the back seat, like, oh, that's a good idea. I'm gonna write that down.
So yeah, it was kind of like really just a dream come true to see David Tennant come back to the role. And like, I don't think anyone predicted the way in which they would bring him back. Kind of everyone assumed that if David Tennant would ever come back again, it would just be the 10th Doctor kind of pulled from his own continuity, own time frame. But to get to the end of the Jodie run, the end of the Flux storyline, and to have Jodie regenerate into David Tennant again, to have David Tennant not be the 10th Doctor but the 14th Doctor, was quite an interesting time, quite an interesting like what the fuck great Doctor Who cliffhanger. I really wish in retrospect that I could have experienced it without knowing that David was coming back, that they were filming stuff with him again. Because I just try to imagine, like, back when I was first watching through the show, if I'd gotten to a moment like that, where it's just fucking she regenerates into David Tennant again would have been so goddamn mind blowing to me, and I'm really jealous of the people who didn't get to know about that ahead of time. So yeah, so David Tennant's back, and they bring back Catherine Tate again because she was like kind of universally agreed upon as his best companion. They had the best dynamic together. I found it interesting that they kind of like hyped up, and there's a lot of behind the scenes pictures that is his name Bernard Cribb was coming back to play Wilfred, and then really he's only in the one scene. I'm not sure if he passed before they got to film other stuff with him that was planned, or what exactly.
He was sick enough when he got on set that they managed to film the one thing, but they had some other stuff planned, but he passed before they could, so they only had to put the one thing with him. He did the full reboot though, which was very sweet. And they looked after him the whole time, so he got to spend his last days on Doctor Who again, which was very, very sweet. And kind of in a bit of bitter irony, if you don't know, Wilf's original role was going to be played by Donna was supposed to have a father, who they had cast in the beginning of Series 4. He also was really, really sick by the time they came to filming, and he passed before they could film his scenes in Season 4, so Donna's father doesn't really get much of a refro. So it's kind of really interesting that something similar like that has happened twice, but from everything that's been said, they both had really wonderful experiences at the last bits of Doctor Who, so at least they're immortalized now and like having fun, even if it's just like a short little bit of time.
Yeah, I kind of got that impression, and it was really weird because you got like that bit in the first special where the Doctor kind of realizes that Wilf isn't around, and they say very like cryptically, "Oh, he's not with us anymore," and he's like, "Oh, of course, he was already old." It's like, "No, what are you talking about? He's in a care home." And I'm like, "Okay, but you said that very poorly. Like, the man is old. Come on." So it's kind of weird because like that scene really like read like it was meant to be that he was still around, or there was going to be more planned with him in the other episodes. But what we got seems like they really had to work on writing around him, and that was a little unfortunate because Wilf is again just such a beloved character from the bits that we see him in Tennant's era. So it is kind of bittersweet to get to see him one last time and know that there was plans for just a little bit more than we got, but it was still really cool to see him. So just in general, how did we want to go about these? Do we want to talk about them like one at a time? Do we want to talk about them collectively? Do we want to talk about Neil Patrick Harris and the most amazing accent in the world? How do we want to go?
We could probably talk in overview and just kind of like round robin, give all of our general thoughts on the three individually before we just kind of talk details. If you want to do it that way.
Okay. I'm here for that.
All right. Well, I've kind of been talking a lot, so why don't we kick it over to Alfie first for a round robin on just general thoughts on each episode.
All right. I assume from how this is go, my take is going to be the most negative on this. It's not something though where I think, because we've been talking for a long time, Ian, about what god awful Doctor Who looks like. So we're not there, and there are I think only one of these episodes I think is truly something where I just didn't feel any of it, to be honest, aside from certain scenes and stuff. But I think just as a whole, this is something where it feels back how Doctor Who should be. And Doctor Who always has episodes I'm not feeling in certain series, but there's always this distinct effort of they're trying, or they're giving these new ideas, or it's a take I disagree with, but at least it's a take on the material. It's something we haven't seen before. Even if it's not something I like, it's some kind of creative energy. People who want to write this stuff want to be here. And God knows I've missed that. So that niceness preface out of the way. So I really, really, really was disappointed by the Star Beast. I do not like the first episode of this. I think I've seen a bit of a consensus that people generally do agree that's the weakest one. But it was one for me where I was watching it and I was just like, this this doesn't feel like Doctor Who. This feels almost Sarah Jane Adventures at some points in comparison to Doctor Who, and it left me kind of questioning, like, this is our comeback. This is what we're choosing to bring back the non-Who audience with this once in a lifetime. You've got David Tennant back, you've got all the media back again, and you're choosing this. And like, I understand it's an adaptation of a comic, which I think is really cool that it's so close to the comic in how it adaptions. And Russell T Davies throughout his run has always picked bits and pieces of a Doctor Who stuff to adapt. Family of Blood is adapted from a Doctor Who novel. Dalek is adapted from a Doctor Who novel. I'm sorry, I think that's adapted from an audio drama. Sorry. So there's like bits and pieces that he's always on the brain of like stuff for Doctor Who that he wants to adapt. But I just didn't feel like this was the thing to work, and I don't think it all came together on a script level. It felt more like a really weird mismatch of scenes that never quite came together for me. And there was, like, I spoke to this with Steve a little bit. That's the episode where I felt the most that there was like this weird ADR quality that, like, David Tennant especially felt like all of his lines were recorded after the fact. Like, there's this great scene where he's running through the TARDIS, but for some reason he doesn't sound like he's David Tennant in that scene when he's running through and he says, "It changed!" He sounds like he's David Tennant recording an audio drama. I was like, why is that? Like, is that just me because I've listened to the David Tennant audio dramas? Did he just change his performance? Or, like, it sounded like it was, there must have been, like, some, I don't know, they were figuring out the set or what. It felt the most clumsy, so not a big fan of the Star Beast. Wild Blue Yonder I liked, and is probably of the three my favorite. I think that one's only real failing, because I think everything else from the performance to the scripts is just, I don't think they're quite capable enough yet with the Disney money to execute it as well as they want to. And that's all. Doctor Who's always kind of had, like, the effects you kind of just roll your eyes and go with. But I think Doctor Who's always kind of been pretty good at having long hallways. So I didn't quite understand the need for CGI. Like, that's what you're good at. Like, you could do that all the time. You're great at long hallways. So that was something where I think, like, maybe the money, I hope that's not an indication of we're going to move away from practical sets to go back to that kind of thing. But aside from that, I thought the concept was really strong. I thought the vibes that it gave a lot to Midnight, which is one of the best 10 episodes. I thought the use of some stuff with Chibnall stuff, which has been recontextualized, which I'm sure we'll get into, was brilliant. And I think David and Catherine's chemistry was fantastic. And the idea for the monster was super scary. So Wild Blue Yonder, solid episode. I like that a decent bit. The third episode is the one I'm the most torn on. I don't quite know how I feel about the giggle, and I think as we talk about it, I might get a better idea about it. So I'll maybe save some more of those thoughts until we get into it more, because I think that's the one that everyone's got the most opinions on. But just kind of short, I love Neil Patrick Harris as Mixel Spitalik. I think he's fantastic in the role. I think it's been portrayed better. I think he did a great job. I think Tennant does a really good job portraying the 14th Doctor as just someone who's lived through everyone's lives that we've had up to that point. I think that's the episode where maybe Donna kind of gets left behind a little bit, and there's some choices with it that feels like a little too callbacky without needing to justify it. But outside of that, I think the execution of that episode had a really good kind of big climactic feel, and they're going to a lot of different locations. There's just little bits and pieces here and there, and then a couple of big things which stopped me from like wholeheartedly liking that one. But at the time when I watched it, I hated it, and I told that to Steve. I was like, I hate this. Now that I've sat on it a little bit more, and I've looked over it a little bit more and rewatched some scenes, I've got some different thoughts on it. But I'm excited to talk about that one with you guys and see where we land.
Okay, Steve, what are your general thoughts on the specials?
So I might be in the middle of both of you guys. I like the Star Beast quite a bit. I think it's fun. I think it's cute. I think it's a good introduction, or a reintroduction really, to Tennant and Donna. I like what RTD does as basically putting his money where his mouth is, where a couple years ago he gave MCU Loki shit for coming out as bi because he thought it was just Disney PR and he called it Craven. And then 2 years later, he hires the writer of Loki to be on Doctor Who and does an episode of Doctor Who where being bi is the thing that saves the universe. So, you know what? Points for that. I kind of fucking love that. I liked that one quite a bit. I thought it was cute and fun and harmless. It feels a lot more like just kind of standard Doctor Who affair, which after everything we saw with Jodie, definitely feels like a return to form. It is a lot more enjoyable than most of that stuff for me, at least. One thing I did have a problem with in that episode, it's not really a problem, it's just something about the idea behind it that I don't understand because I feel like it ruins the joke, is I fucking hate the sonic screwdriver bit where he has like fucking force shields. That's the dumbest thing in the world to me. I fucking hate it. The idea that the sonic screwdriver is something that you just kind of have to trust the Doctor on because no one can confirm what the fuck he's doing. I think it's great. I love the sort of standard philosophy of the sonic screwdriver can basically do anything except solve the problem of the episode, but it's the Doctor's tool. You just have to take the word from the Doctor that when he's reading it or whatever, it says something and it makes sense and it's intelligible to him. So doing like these weird force shield bit, I feel like kind of destroyed that illusion, and I hated that. But aside from that, I thought it was great. I love the Meep as a villain. I thought the whole reveal towards the end where he puts on the fucking white powder wig and starts an impromptu trial was the funniest thing ever. So I like that one quite a bit. I loved Wild Blue Yonder. I thought that one was great. I really like when Doctor Who tries to go for more of that cosmic horror vibe, and I thought the mystery at the center of that one was really good. And I thought the sort of central idea of the whole bringing back David Tennant thing kind of came more to fruition in that moment. So I liked that one quite a bit. I like the scarier Doctor Who episodes. I love the stuff that him and Donna get to do when they don't know that the other person is fake. I love the moment where David Tennant gets to talk about the flux and what happened and his guilt over that. And when he's confessing that and is talking about his emotions in this big open way, in a way that 10 would normally kind of bottle up, this guy is 14, is just letting it all out on the floor. And then the person he's confessing to is not even really Donna, and I thought that was just really fucking good. The David Tennant being in a weird monster mode where he's got his head going out from back and he's just running on all fours and shit. I love that. That was great. And then the giggle, I 90% love, and I don't know how I feel about the bi-generation thing.
Okay, we'll get there.
Yeah, we'll talk about the bi-generation thing. I love 15's introduction. I thought he was fantastic. He's so funny and so charismatic. I love the way Tennant plays 14 in this as different from 10. And just kind of overall, I think the thing about these three specials together is I feel like RTD's come back to Doctor Who to kind of make a statement of, we revive the show under the premise of the Time War and essentially doing a very different version of the Doctor where he's kind of always got this baggage about what the fuck happened at the Time War. And every incarnation of modern Who has kind of been wrestling with that. And it sort of gets to have its moment to really end after 12 regenerates, and then Jodie was supposed to be the new big fresh era. And then Jodie gets her own version of the Time War, which ends up being the Flux at the end of that series. And so to bring 14 back and for RTD to say, you started Doctor Who with the Time War, and instead of moving forward, we've basically circled back to where we were at the beginning, which is this guy now has guilt for doing something awful again. So let's rewind the clock. If the show is going to conceptually rewind, then let's make the Doctor rewind to make him understand that that's what he's done, and then forcibly exile that part of the show's history to a separate side so we can move on with a fun, different, fresher vibe on the Doctor. That is like the thesis statement of the 3 episodes I really, really love. So I like these quite a bit more than Alfie did. I've got nitpicks here and there, and really the thing that I feel like we should, all 3 of us, just kind of hammer out is what the fuck we think about the bi-generation thing.
Well, we'll get there. I want to go like episode by episode now and talk about just with the Star Beast. So it was really interesting to watch that because I'd not heard of the comic or anything in the past before watching it. So I'm kind of watching it, and you've got this cute, fluffy, very marketable looking alien creature, that's like, yeah, that's being like, you know, befriended a la ET style and stuff, and it's like, it's very memeable, you know, like just straight up meep meep. It's just like hugging Donna's leg. It's chaos. It's fun. It's cute. And I'm sitting there watching it like in real time, and I'm like, oh, so he's like kind of taking notes from the Baby Yoda thing, and full stop. He is. But then he fucked with it in just the most fundamental way. It's like he saw it's like Davies saw the reaction to Baby Yoda just as like a cultural moment and decided, okay, I can capture that with Doctor Who, but then I can turn it on its fucking head. And I loved that about the Meep. That was so fucking cool. That episode actually made me cry. The scene where it's just the Doctor and Donna on the other side, on the opposite sides of the glass wall. Every scene that is amazing with David Tennant, there's a wall and two characters on either side of it. That's just how it is. But like, there's that whole section, and there's that really just heartfelt moment between them, where he's like, "I can get us out of this, but to do it, you're going to have to die," which is kind of the like sin at the heart of the original Donna story. Like, even Moffat like made the end of Clara's story basically a foil for that, to kind of react to it and deal with it, you know, years later via surrogate. And so to just see that scene, and then the moment where Donna starts saying all the words, and then just all of her memory comes flooding back, and you get the regeneration energy emerging from Donna and stuff, literally had me in tears. And then to turn it on its head 10 seconds after that, and she goes, "I gave away all my money." It was just really fucking funny. So I don't know if I wholly agree with the comparison to Sarah Jane stuff, because I just think the writing of the characters was really, really strong there. I do see what you mean as far as the like the scale and the concept for some of the stuff. Like, I thought the Meep looked great. I thought the soldiers chasing him down, not so much. But they're not in it super long, and it's oddly enough, it's when they get like in the close-ups that they look their best. It's when they're trying to do like action and fighting that they look really bad.
Right.
So I don't know. I didn't mind most of that. I thought that worked out. Steve, to your thing with the sonic screwdriver. No, you're wrong. It's cool. Shut the fuck up.
Fair enough.
So there's my like big things on that one. Wild Blue Yonder, I will agree with you, Alfie, on the point you made about the, like, you know, Doctor Who does long corridors really well. It seems kind of pointless to have done it so heavily in CGI. So I was a little taken aback by that. But overall, the rest of the episode looked so good that I didn't really care about the corridor. Like, I was able to get over that really fast, with just the way that like the effects work on David and Catherine ended up looking. Like, there's that shot of David sticking his head through his legs that looks a little iffy, but otherwise just everything else with the monster versions of them was so fucking good. And yeah, again, it felt so much like Midnight, which is one of David Tennant's best episodes. And to just get that with him and Donna getting to be the heroes and villains of the story was so cool. Like, I watched all the behind the scenes for these, and Davies talked about, oh, you know, they're on the spaceship, maybe they like open a door and they find the frozen body of the first Doctor or something. And he mentioned that no, that wouldn't be true to the original idea, which is to just have the two actors alone and trapped and having to work through the situation. And I just appreciated that so much, of the idea of not letting the concept get away from you, just sticking to the initial concept, the initial inspiration, and going forward. And it was just such a fantastic fucking episode. It may be my favorite of these three, but I did really, really like just about everything about the giggle. And the like big things surrounding it. So we'll get there, I promise, but I don't want to just... I feel like everyone's fucking talking about bi-generation, so, you know, we'll get there when we fucking have the time for it. I want to talk about the other stuff, too. So the giggle was great. Neil Patrick Harris was a fucking riot to watch. The dude was just so good on screen, and just appreciated getting to see him so much. Every scene he was in was just fantastic. The Spice World scene or Spice Up Your Life, whatever it was so fucking fun to watch. I had such a great time with that. And then the way that it all just kind of keeps ramping up, and then it ends up being so like simple, silly things. You know, they're working with this Disney money. And then what does the big epic struggle become? It's not a fucking laser light in the sky that they've got to turn off somehow or other. They've got to play cards in a game of catch. Yeah, it's so fucking fun to just see it like really feel the most Doctor Who out of everything. And just within the premise of it, it worked. You know, you get that scene that feels like it's very much there for the audience of Donna being like, no, you can't play with him. It's his cards. He'll cheat. It's like, he would never cheat. The only thing he's bound by is the rules of the game. It's like, I don't know. It's so, like, quintessentially Doctor Who, and I fucking loved it. Shukti? I never know if I'm saying his name right. Shuti?
Yeah, as if, like, shooting something, like shooting.
Okay. My brain just sees the N, and it refuses to accept that there's any different way to say it.
I had the exact same thing.
Yeah, Shooty. He's so fucking fun for what we get to see. It's just absolutely absurd that he's running around in just his fucking underwear for... Like, even after everything's died down, he doesn't even change or put on pants. It's just like... I don't even think he notices.
Why would you want him to do that? On what planet does that man need to wear pants?
You make a solid point, Steve. So that was just fucking adorable. And then, you know, getting to see the Doctor prescribe himself to therapy was also pretty good.
Those two like instantly had chemistry too, which I fucking loved.
Yeah, for sure. So they're playing the same character. They've got to have chemistry. So it was fucking time and a half. It was a laugh riot. So I really did just rode a high from one to the next for all of these. And I had a great time. Okay, so do we want to go just talk about the Star Beast and get into the nitty gritty of it, or are you two just absolutely dying to get to bi-generation?
I think Steve just wants to jump right into just the general.
No. I can wait to talk about the bi-generation. That was the one thing that I feel like I still need to air out with other people. But we can start at the beginning, because one thing that we talked about, I don't know if we talked about it on the mic or off mic, but it all blurs together, is I was not in love with the idea that David Tennant would come back and be 14, and then Ncuti would come in and be 15 instead of him just being 15. I was hoping that there would be more of this sort of psychological dimension to him wanting to regenerate backwards, and not kind of waste an entire bit of the cycle on just David Tennant a second time. And we kind of got our cake and ate it too with the way they handled it. The Star Beast doesn't do a lot in terms of trying to like address that mystery aside from just establishing that it's there, but it does do a lot of interesting thematic setup to just kind of like get us reacquainted with the fact that not only is David Tennant back as the Doctor, but he's not playing him in the same way he played Ted. There are like fun little callbacks here and there to that. I mean, especially because he shows up, he meets Donna, he introduces her daughter Rose, and immediately he has that look in that eye of like, wait, Rose? So like there's bits of that there, but he's playing a fundamentally different character. And I do really like that about that first episode, where he's a little bit more like harder to warm up. He's a little bit more like reserved. When Unit starts investigating the ship landing, he's just kind of hiding out in the corner, and he's not really like jumping into the situation the way the Doctor normally would. And all of that stuff I really enjoy. I think in that episode in particular, you're getting an interesting statement on the series that I think is a good fit for RTD to come back in and say, I have more things to say about this character, instead of just giving it to someone else, which would normally be the hope for a show like this, which is that he's coming in to say that Doctor Who as a concept is something that has firm beginning, middles, and ends. The Doctor arrives, the Doctor goes on his adventure, the Doctor dies, and you replace him with the next Doctor. And there's always got this cycle of moving forward. But in that process of moving forward, you're going to have a lot of baggage from the past that, with fresher eyes, you want to be able to reevaluate. And I think the Star Beast actually does a really good job of playing with really basic assumptions about what we want David Tennant's Return to Doctor Who to be, and it kind of going against that when it wants to. Ian, you mentioned the fact that the Meep is just like this Baby Yoda style cash-in, and then immediately turns into this demonic evil force.
Oh, just the first time it goes evil is so, like, triggering.
It's so funny. He just shoots a dude. I loved it so much.
I watched
He's
that
just
episode.
A fucking asshole.
I watched that episode with Leah, and now she likes Doctor Who because of that episode, and she's like, oh, I like the Meep. He's cute. And then I'm like, we get to that scene because I'd already seen the episode, and I was like, okay, I'm looking at her, and he turns, and, you know, I go, what? She goes, what happened? Why is he mean? It was so fucking great.
Dude, Leah and I had the exact same reaction to that, because I was watching the episode, and, like, I texted Alfie, and I was like, I would die for the Meep. And then, like, 10 minutes later, I'm like, never mind.
How the audience says.
I really like that, and I feel like if we're going to talk about the Star Beast, we do especially have to talk about the whole meta crisis Dr. Donna thing and how that gets resolved, because that's another thing in that episode that I don't love. I like that we bring that back, and there is like a source of tension in that whole episode of the Doctor can't remind Donna of who he is, or she's going to die. And when she reawakens the Doctor memories in her and just starts doing things to save the day, that's all great. I don't like how easy it is for them to just let go of the Doctor's Time Lord memories, and it just disperses. And it just has like that cutesy line of like, well, you're a male presenting Time Lord, so we'll do something you would never think to do. Let it go. Like, oh, that's dumb. That's really cringe. I'm sorry, but it's really cringe.
That I didn't love either. I did think that felt a little too, I don't know if easy's the right word, but just, it didn't feel like it had the same gravity.
Especially because
situation.
I really like the way like Rose and Donna's relationship's written, because I feel like there is some like good family nuance and dynamic there about like how you get these moments where like Rose is walking down the street and she's getting dead named, and Donna and her relationship isn't so much about whether Donna accepts her or not, but Donna feeling pressure to not do or say something that's going to hurt her more, and like finding a way to be able to relate to her and be sensitive to her. I thought all that stuff was really good. And then the last 30 seconds when they just let go of the power, I'm like, oh, suddenly you went from being a very nuanced writer when it comes to queer characters to just being extremely cringe.
I don't know. I think that's like gonna be a bridge you're always walking, of just how far you want to go with presenting it, and might be just Davies commenting on his own kind of thing, because with Donna getting her memories erased and the Doctor doing it to her unwillingly, that's kind of become a point of contention, and a lot of discussion has gone on around that in the interim. So it's kind of interesting to maybe just take it as a read of, yeah, I don't know what I was thinking. That was kind of shit. So I'm not going to put a ton of effort into undoing it. I'm going to let it have the emotional weight it needs. But as far as the long-term implications, I'm just going to kind of say, yep, I fucked up on that one. That'd be like my reading if I wanted to be a little bit generous, but I do agree with you, Steve. It did feel like a bit too easy of an out at the end of the day.
To kind of hop off that, but like keep on the same kind of train of thought, I do find it really interesting how much this is the first showrunner of Doctor Who, even more than, if we're calling this era, as has been affectionately referred to, RTD2. As this new era, if you look back to RTD, very, very worried and not very jumping into referencing prior Doctor Who stuff very much. Like, gradually, we'll wait a season, we'll have the Daleks, we'll bring in the Cybermen, bringing in a big new classic villain every season. And we're trying to, like, introducing the concept of regeneration at the end of season 1. We're slowly feeding all these other things back into the audience. And then you get to Moffat, who kind of has a pretty clean slate, from Tennant to Smith, where you don't need to watch any Tennant stuff to watch the 11th Hour. You can jump straight in. And again, there are callbacks here and there to the previous showrunner, but mostly it's its own thing. You'll have stuff like Ian mentioned with, I think we've talked about this before, how I think it's really interesting that one of Moffat's big grand series finales with Clara is effectively the Dr. Donna reverse. And it's almost as if it's a comment on that direct thing of like, hey, this is how that should have gone. This is what the agency of the Doctor, this is what a hero would have done in this situation. He would have made the sacrifice. They wouldn't have had to sacrifice for him. Davis has watched every single episode of Doctor Who that's come out since his era. I don't think even Moffat has watched every episode of Doctor Who that's come out. I think he created much distance himself. But Davis has been on record. He's got reviews where he says that The Doctor Falls is one of the greatest pieces of sci-fi literature ever made, and we're getting it for 5p. Like, he's gushing about it. He's very good friends with Chris Chibnall. He's seen every Jodie episode. So even Chibnall, when he came on, wasn't necessarily new Who references. It was more so old classic Who references. And if anything, throwing away a lot of Moffat stuff. Is Gallifrey came back? Oh, no, it's gone again. Oh, the Masters redeemed? No, evil again. No, it's like very much going through that kind of thing. And as a showrunner, you can have your taste and stuff like that, but that's kind of what Doctor Who is meant to do. And Ian, you've been going through the classic series. That's kind of what, there's not a lot of callbacks in Doctor Who. Mostly we always kind of just keep mushing forward, and when there is a callback, it's normally a small thing or we're changing things. This is very much the first time I've seen Doctor Who in the span of 3 episodes back to back to back be so heavy on everything that's come before it. To where one of Shooty's first scenes is almost listing off the entire history of Doctor Who in like a 2-second scene. And you like that or dislike it, it's your thing, but I think as a choice is what I'm really hammering home in, is these 3 specials feel like, as a writer, Davis answering and getting ahead of every potential thing you could either fall trap to, get out of the system, or comment. So it's very front-loaded and has already got the response from the papers because of the trans representation, the queer comments from the Doctor, all that stuff, the fucking Isaac Newton race swap that people lost their minds over for some reason. The BBC and UK papers have been all over the show already. And I think that's, outside of just being good representation, I think it's very much intentional that he's turning it on an extra gear before Shooty came on, so that when the Black Doctor comes on, everyone's already called Doctor Who has gone woke and Doctor Who has been ruined. Shooty almost feels like a breath of, like, that. Not that many people have been commenting on Shooty of all things. Like, I'm sure it will happen as we get on, but I do actually think that's kind of a genius idea to present. In one hand, here's Tennant, here's everything we've done before, here's everything the show is that you've loved, and here's everything the show's not going to do anymore, and here's everything the show has changed, and here's everything and the thing. And in the same way you said, Steve, about the whole bi-generation thing and the, kind of the meaning of these specials is getting the Doctor to process their trauma, to stop and breathe and just exist. As a concept, I do think that's really, really strong, and Russell T Davies has always been the proponent of the Doctor needs to chill the fuck out, the Doctor is torturing himself, they're a tragic figure. So the fact that we've had so many episodes with Tennant specifically, where a version of David Tennant gets a happily ever after ending that David Tennant has to watch and leave on. You get the Meta Crisis Doctor, you get the Family of Blood, like flashback human Doctor, and now you've got him himself getting to do that. It's very intentional. I don't think any of these things have made a mistake. Some of my qualms and some of my issues come from maybe overreaching and execution not quite being there with some of these things just on a pure craft level. I really like the arc we go through with David Tennant, but I feel like Donna's half of that kind of gets shoehorned pretty quick once you get past the first episode. Even in Wild Blue Yonder, she herself doesn't have that much. She's got a little bit. She's got some good scenes, but she's talking about her family moving on and stuff. But I do wonder if all of the shuffle and trying to start a new era and all these kind of things, the cracks kind of coming through, and that could just be a me thing. Maybe it will take rewatches, but I respect the ambition a hell of a lot, and I see what he was going for. I just wonder if this is the best version of that story that could have been told, I guess is my point.
It's an interesting take on it. I'd not heard much complaint about the Donna side of the story before, and I think that her character arc is handled pretty well. The thing I was most impressed by is we see that, like, the Doctor's effect on Donna and just kind of who Donna is really hasn't changed, even though he, fucking Klingon mind, or, what is it? Vulcan mind wiped her. The scene that really stuck out for me in Star Beast with Donna was she's continually putting herself in the line of fire, continually putting herself in danger. And it all kind of culminates in that moment where the Doctor gets her and her family her way out, and she apologizes to them, closes, locks the door, and runs to go help the Doctor. That was really fucking good to me. That was the kind of thing to me that showed that, no, this is still the same character. She has been profoundly changed. It doesn't matter if she doesn't remember it properly. And that's kind of what leads to the catharsis of that moment of giving her everything back that she'd lost. I might agree with you that she doesn't get much more development, doesn't really go anywhere past that first episode. But I think that's because she doesn't necessarily need to. She kind of is complete. Everything she'd wanted from her initial introduction in the show back when Tennant was 10 to this moment kind of felt like that really completed her story to me. And then she was there to be the companion, to be there to help the Doctor, and not just the, oh, okay, I'll hold this flashlight while you work on the thing kind of way that a lot of companions get relegated to, but to be the thing that drives an emotional catharsis. And I would argue a lot of the moments and conversation and talking she does with him, in these little snippets of moments, these like little things where she keeps saying, we've not stopped, is kind of what leads to the Doctor being, from a story reason, capable of bi-generating, because I've actually got two arguments story-wise, just lore and story-wise, about that when we get there. But I'd say that is the moment where she is truly the companion that is helping him grow and learn and just be better. Similar in the way that, like, you go all the way back to Ian Chesterton, and he helps, or he forces the Doctor not to kill that dude, and in a way that kind of establishes what the entire character's, like, trajectory would become. And I think that Donna plays a very similar role in that moment throughout the rest of the story.
I would also add to that bit there, where I think part of what Donna does in the beginning of the Star Beast that sort of comes full circle at the end is they make those comments about how she won the lottery and then she just gave it all away. that she's always kind of like looking for something a little bit more, and giving the money away was her one way of doing that, and that she did kind of suffer from the idea that she couldn't remember her adventures with the Doctor, but was still kind of driven by this need to go out and do things and help people and make a difference. And that kind of like purity of spirit that she has, where Ten thought he was sparing her by erasing all of her memories, when in reality she was fully capable of potentially dealing with that, and still has this incentive to want to help and go on adventures and stuff. That comes full circle in what 14 needs to do, and Donna sort of becomes the role model for what the Doctor should be doing and what the 15th Doctor, it seems like, is going to be doing, where like her sort of like simple, clear-cut, morally certain attitude that doesn't have any of the excess baggage from everything that she's gone through is what the Doctor needs to be to go into the future. Because at the end of the day, what 14 is doing is not very different from what 9 was doing, and the concept needed to evolve further than that. And bringing Donna, of all people, back to kind of shake him into doing that, I really like as well.
Okay, do we want to go on to Wild Blue Yonder? Are there any lingering thoughts about... Oh, Alfie, you didn't pitch in on this. Steve's wrong about the sonic screwdriver, right? It's cool that it can do force fields now?
No, it's not.
You guys are both wrong, and you should feel bad about yourselves.
You know what? You know what
So
annoys me,
dumb,
though? Is I think the design fucking... I love 14 Sonic. I think the Sonic was really, really, really cool. The most I've liked the Sonics and Smiths. I think that's like, I really love this design. I kind of wish Shooty just kept 14 Sonic. But, man, I don't know. It feels like you're putting like... I think I'd be more okay with it because the sonic screwdriver, as part of a prop, as part of like an acting device, has always been good by the quick flare, the quick flip of the wrist, and you get the shot of the lens, and then something happens, right? And it can basically do anything, right? I'm almost the opposite of Steve, where it's like you kind of believe that the Doctor can take on it. I believe, the sonic screwdriver can do anything, right? That's why it exists as a device. It's because the Doctor's not a very physical character, aside from when he's doing Venetian Aikido. You're gonna have to use some kind of external device. It's his utility belt, and Batman's utility belt can do anything. I'm fine with it doing anything. I just think him standing very slowly and bit by bit, slowly moving these blue screens in the way, is just so lame. Like, if you're gonna have the Doctor make some kind of force field, at least I think there even is a part in New Who where he uses the screwdriver and it like makes a kind of bubble kind of thing that and it quickly does it and something like that. But like, I don't like the sonic screwdriver making basically Green Lantern key constructs, which are very, very slow. If you're gonna do it, make it quick. Make it something that the Doctor has to do quick and move, because that's what Doctor Who's all about, right? It's the idea of running from the danger. So I don't know. I didn't particularly have an issue with when he used it almost like a pen and made that little screen that he could see shit on. I thought that was kind of neat. It's not my favorite thing in the world, but it's like, okay, I could deal with that. But just using that to deflect blaster bolts in the way he did it and the execution of that, I was just, no thank you. I'm with Steve. That was lame.
You suck. You're a bad person. All right, fine. I will stand alone as the only man who is right. Yet again on this show.
Yeah, this is why Russell T Davies is in your car stealing your ideas.
Yeah, exactly. You're just fucking jealous that Russell T Davies didn't take your ideas. Well, I'm not really interested in bringing Peter Capaldi back. He doesn't want to come back. Yeah, but like... Anyway, all right. So let's go on to Wild Blue Yonder, which... It's interesting. I think we all agree that it's just a really good episode, and while it does further stuff, it'll probably be the one we talk the least about, because it's just so fucking solid and perfect. And out of all of these, it is the most standalone. Like there's still stuff. The Flux gets mentioned here, and there's baggage from that, but it just kind of doesn't really require a lot else going into it. There's not a lot of mention of the mystery for why David's face is back. There's not just a lot going on with the continuity for this one. It's just bare bones, a really solid, like, this one feels the most like the David Tennant specials of old, with, you know, Waters of Mars, Planet of the Dead, was it? Or I don't remember.
Yeah, you're right. Go ahead, Ian.
No, you're fine.
What I really like about What's Funny is, at the time, this was the episode that we knew the least about. This was the one that, like, they were very secretive with the marketing and no one thing. So, like, Ken, you kind of alluded to earlier, is this was the one that everyone was expecting fucking Matt Smith to come in on a horse with the fucking head of Tom Baker and all these kind of things. This was going to be the 60th episode that people thought it was going to be the big anniversary one where a whole bunch of people cross over. And Russell T Davies he's aware of it. He made a little in the behind the scenes Doctor Who Unleashed things they've got on YouTube right now. He mentions after the episode where he's like, yeah, I knew marketing it, people were going to think this was like a multi-Doctor episode or something, but I just wanted to do an episode with Doctor and Donna while I had them that wasn't about setup or conclusion. It was just an adventure in the TARDIS with Doctor and Donna again. And I love that. I think that's what makes him a really, really good showrunner. And as much as I love Moffat, I don't think that's something Moffat would have done. I think that Russell T Davies is uniquely suited to the idea of the one-off adventure. If he had a comic run, he's the guy to do the banger one-off issue, right? Because he knows the power in that. He knows the idea that, like, at the end of the day, this is a 40-minute piece of television that you need to engage from day one and then end at day one and pace very accordingly at 20-minute intervals. We have a new reveal, we have a new thing bit by bit. Like, if you look at any Russell T Davies script, which I have because I think it's very good for any aspiring screenwriter, he's one of the best people to look at because he's the closest you'll get to a swish watch of a script. He's so on point with how he writes, and every single beat there's a new twist, there's a new turn, and it's like every 20-minute interval or every 15-minute interval is boom, boom, beat, boom, beat. And this is kind of a really good example of that, where you've got two fantastic actors in David Tennant and Catherine Tate, and you just let them work. You just stick them in a place, and you get atmosphere, you get tone, you get big ideas, you get concepts, which again, I love with Doctor Who, with the idea of the edge of the universe and how horrifying that could be. And my favorite thing of the whole thing, how dangerous invoking a superstition at the end of the... Oh, I love that. That fucking gets me so good, man. I fucking love shit like that. That's like that scratches my... Ian always talks about how my crutch is I always go too big. This shit's way fucking... This is where I get it from. He's the dude who's like, if you put salt at the end of the universe, you will invite cosmic beings and fairy tales back into existence. And I'm just like, shit's so cool. That's so crazy. So I loved all of that. And I think the choice to do a weird one, the choice not to go for the fan-pleasing moment, the choice to go body horror, to go two-man crew, is such a good statement of intent, not just for these specials, but going forward of he still gets it. He still gets what Doctor Who fundamentally is, even when given all this money, even when given his favorite actors back, even if we make other choices which I disagree with, and he's changed as a writer, and we've all changed as people since we watched it. I'm not 7 years old anymore. I have a different relationship with the show now and the showrunner than I did when I first watched it live. He's still got that fucking understanding that Doctor Who is a story where you go inside a box, you leave that box, and in 40 minutes, you have to waste an idea that would be $1 million movie franchise. And that idea is gone now because you've wasted it on a single Doctor Who episode, because that's how big this show is. It consumes those ideas. You can't get away with not trying that hard in Doctor Who because it will buckle under its weight.
Yeah. I just fucking loved it. Someone even today at work was making a joke about a guy who was there, and he usually only wears sleeveless shirts, and he had a sleeved shirt, and one of the guys just looks at him and goes, "If you say your arms are too long, I'm getting the fuck out of here." And I looked across the room at him like, "You watched that?" And he goes, "Just the clip. I've not actually seen the episode because I don't watch Doctor Who, but I just saw the clip," and I was like, "What the fuck is going on?" And I'm like, but there's like There's some real fucking power to that. That's someone that doesn't even fucking watch Doctor Who. That just came on their radar and it was instantly memorable and like instantly, the reaction he had as not a fan is the same fucking reaction I had as a fan. Just, my arms are too long. So fucking cool. Steve, what you got any further thoughts, details on Wild Blue Yonder? Because I really like the episode, but I have nothing to say about it.
Yeah, I really love this one. This one's my favorite of the three, I think. It might be the favorite, all of our favorites of the three, it sounds like. But I really like how simple and clean it is. What's really cool about this one, I feel like, is it's one where Tennant sells that 14 is different from 10 the most to me. This in particular one, I feel like him and Donna get a chance to like really talk over what happened and why he's back, and he gets to kind of externalize those emotions more. And I just really, really love David Tennant's performance in this. I think it's by far the best he does in all three of them. And it's the one that sold me most on the idea of like, fine, okay, we can have David Tennant back if he just like gets to yell in a hallway and bang the wall. That's what I need my David Tennant Doctor to be doing. But I like that bit a lot. What Alfie mentioned about invoking a superstition at the edge of the universe, that's so fucking cool. That's the coolest idea anyone's ever had. I really, really loved that. I loved the way Catherine Tate played that scene where he's spilling the salt on the ground and like she's really nervous about like, wait, what he's saying true? And then she just dives down and starts counting it. It's so cool. And I think the monster, the creature of the week, it's a new creation, if I remember right? Like, this is not a pre-existing entity that Doctor's fought before. And, like, when's the last time we've done something like that, right? Like, it's been a minute since we had the Doctor just fight a brand new alien in space. So I really enjoyed this one. I think it does a lot of the sort of thematic heavy lifting to kind of help set up more of the stuff that we would get to later in the Giggle. I don't think this one is completely unrelated to the ideas. I feel like the first two episodes kind of go together and trying to like set the tone for like what is the nature of the mystery of 14 coming, or of 14 looking like 10, about the Doctor not really dealing with the fact that he's gone from Time War to the Flux and basically remained stagnant, the fact that he's basically just constantly been going since the moment he stepped out of the box, and that gets paid off later in the Giggle. So I liked a lot of that stuff. The CGI can be dodgy in places, but I mean, what's Doctor Who if it does not have dodgy CGI? So it didn't really bother me. Also, the tiny robot who moves slowly through the ship to press one button, so cute. Loved him. 10 out of 10.
Yeah. The like dong bong of the alien captain's corpse fucking hitting the outside of the ship was such a good fucking reveal too.
I loved that.
Yeah.
It felt like fucking Doctor Who does Alien, right? Like, it was so fucking cool.
Yeah, so fucking good. Okay, so let's go ahead and get into the Giggle. Do we want to talk around it, or do we want to just get into the bi-generation?
I think there's some other stuff that maybe we could talk about before we get to bi-generation, because it's a loaded episode, I feel like.
It really is.
You guys can go ahead.
Okay. I just fucking, like, right out the gate, it was so interesting to watch this, because, like, I reeled and then I was so in with Neil Patrick Harris's accent. Like, when he first starts talking, I'm like, ooh, this looks like it's gonna be rough. I don't know if I like him doing that the whole episode. And then he, like, drops it. It's in that same scene, he just drops the accent a little bit, and the guy even mentions it. And I'm like, oh, okay, so it's not going to be the full episode. But then, by the end of it, I'm like, no, please just keep talking like that. The ball is the first game ever being invented. I'm like, please just keep doing that the whole fucking episode, never stop. It's so good. Because it's just, like, intentionally annoying in, like, the best possible way. And I'm, like, in on it with him. I'm just fucking there for it. It's so good. It's the fact that it's, like, so intentionally like stereotypical and inappropriate, and I was all fucking about it. It
Neil
was a
Patrick Harris fucking rules, man. He's so good in this.
yeah.
He's one of those actors that I kind of have a problem with sometimes, where he's so recognizable that I feel like it's hard to like take a scene seriously when he shows up. And I guess the way you get around that is you just make a character who's basically Neil Patrick Harris if he had superpowers, and he'll just play that. But like I was watching some behind the scenes clips where he's like, "Oh yeah, this guy's got to be a magician. He's got to be able to dance. He got to be able to sing." It's like, oh, just get Neil Patrick Harris. He could do all of it. Um, I love the way he plays the toy maker. I like that because I went back and like tried to figure out like some of the classic toy maker story stuff. I love that the original actor was fucking Michael Goth, who played Alfred, which is really neat. But in no part, at no point did Neil Patrick Harris to me feel like he was doing an impression of Michael Goth, except for like those really sparse moments where he like drops the accent and starts talking seriously with a faint British accent. I really liked what he was doing back and forth with that, and then when he's listing off all of the Doctor's companions that died, and then David Tennant
Well,
like tries
that's
to
all right
justify
then.
it. That's all right then. I thought he was great. He was chilling. He was terrifying.
Dude,
And then
sorry, before you move on from that, just the fact that like Alfie and I were talking about this, right? Where like Clara and Moffat is kind of its Clara and the 12th Doctor is kind of its own take, Moffat's own take on the Doctor and Donna, and like that's not the way that situation should have gone. This I loved Russell, but this is like my gripe, and then fucking Russell to fire back so goddamn hard of like, oh yeah, all of your companions fucking died, but no, it's okay. They really survived, kind of just off screen. Oh my fucking god, that was so savage.
Yeah,
I love that so much. I love the way they just kind of go back and forth, and the like legitimate terror in David Tennant's eyes as he's being confronted by all of his own failures. And then fucking Neil Patrick Harris lip syncing Spice Girls. Like, what more do you want a TV show to do?
Mm-hmm.
There's a line in there, like in the puppet show thing, that I think is just as, because he's firing at Moffat in there, but there's also a sneaky little Chibnall one, which
Mm-hmm.
I really liked, is where he's like, "I made a jigsaw of your history. Did you like it?" I was like,
Yep.
"Oh, such a good fucking bit. That's like the perfect way to contextualize every Doctor Who thing ever. Is the toy maker just fucking with him?"
Yep. No, that was a great way of like, okay, so is Davies gonna address the whole timeless children thing? Nope. That was it. He doesn't ever have to go back to it unless he really wants to. It was just the toy maker fucking with stuff. So maybe he's from Gallifrey. Maybe the Doctor's from Gallifrey. Maybe they're not. It doesn't matter now. And I fucking appreciated that so much, because it's that like it's that perfect sweet spot, right? Of like, why did the Doctor never find this out before? What the fuck happened? We've known that time can be rewritten, and so now we've got like, yeah. And so it has been. So maybe the Doctor was from Gallifrey in the past. Maybe the Doctor was the timeless child during Chibnall's run. Maybe that doesn't matter anymore. It's just all gone. Is like so good. It's like kind of pick your poison. Real quick, as we're talking about the toy maker, it was so interesting watching this for me, because even though I've like gone and taken on the mission of I'm gonna watch all of Classic Who, the toy maker is one of the incomplete sagas. So I never got to watch anything with Hartnell and the toy maker. What the service I'm watching it on skipped right over it. I did a little research. I watched the clip that the Doctor Who YouTube channel posted, is like this, basically the end of the saga where the Doctor gets the final victory on the toy maker, and it's what's relevant to this. But I did some research. I was kind of curious to see like how much of it was complete, how much of it wasn't. It's one of those ones where they have all the audio and they're going to go back and reanimate it again. And I'm hoping that means it will be like at least 30% less shit animation than the other.
Sadly, they released some stills.
Yeah.
Like the worst 3D modeling you've ever seen in your life.
I mean, if it's better than the paper dolls, that's all I need.
It literally is almost that quality. It's like
Oh no.
90. It's like Transformers, Beast Wars prior 3D animation.
No, wait, hold on. If we put this on a scale of Tenet with Dreamland,
it's basically that the sequel. Let me guess.
okay, I'm honestly happier with that than the fucking paper dolls. Full stop. You have no idea how bad and lifeless and like missing any emotion the fucking paper dolls are. So, full stop. I am better with the Dreamland quality than that shit.
I guess what to say, but
Not saying it's gonna be good, but I'm just saying.
No.
So I don't know. It's just interesting to, even though I've like gone and I've gotten the history of like basically everyone. I don't think there's a major Doctor Who recurring villain I haven't seen start off yet. We've gotten Daleks, obviously Cybermen, Davros, Centaurans. So I've gotten all of them, and now to like, haha, you missed this one was kind of just a cool, fun experience, and just everything that Neil Patrick Harris does with it is just super fucking fun. So yeah.
I really do like how this one's able to like do a balance between the scary and the silly, because like even when you look at like that Spice Girls bit, he's going around dancing and singing and turning bullets into petals, but like everyone else in that scene and the way it's shot and colored is fucking terrifying. It's all just deep reds and people are horrified, and Tennant keeps screaming, "Don't shoot! Don't shoot!" It's really, really cool how he's able to like do an insane musical number like that, while at the same time never making you feel like the villain is a joke in any sort of way. Alfie mentioned Mixie Spidlake, but I thought he was doing more of like a Q from TNG vibe, where there was like this rivalry between both celestial entities there, and that he's not only fucking with them, but that there is also like this level of these guys have an understanding of each other, and 10 or 14 is afraid of him and respects him, but can still kind of go toe to toe with him, and the toy maker is in that same sort of camp where like he wants a challenge, or is inviting a challenge in a certain way. I like that a lot. I love the card cutting scene. I thought that was great, and it was super tense in that moment.
And Davies got a Davies in that scine too. It's like the one who waits. I ran from him. The Who? No, that's somebody else's game. Fucking just like what?
Everything up until the regeneration bit, where he says, I played my first game with one doctor, and I played one game with you, and then he shoots him in the chest, and he's like, I'll play the third game with the next doctor. That's one of the coolest doctor deaths ever. I loved that.
It's just like so like intimidating in that moment, the way that he goes back and forth, and like of course we get the, you know, Tennant's obviously playing it differently, but Davies is still writing him just a little bit like 10 in certain ways. Like, no, leave the people of Earth alone. We can go off into the cosmos together. The Toy Maker and the Time Lord.
I love that.
And yet, it's just the way he like turns the laser around.
I love
so
that
cool.
bit.
So fucking cool.
Before we, because I feel like we're like really dancing around the bi-generation thing. Before we get to that bit, I will say my one big complaint about Disney Money Doctor Who is in this episode, because the first episode looked fine, looked great. Some of the ADR was a little bit weird, but you know, that's understandable. The second episode looks great, looks fine. Dodgy CGI, it's the British Doctor Who. What do you want? This episode, though, so much of it takes place outside. And it's just got that ugly ass, no one decided to do any sort of color correcting, everything looks like concrete digital camera look, and I can't fucking stand it. There were so many moments early on where, when they're not inside buildings or not inside the toy maker's realm, where everything is just dull and gray and concrete looking, and I think it's awful.
I guess that just didn't really pick up on anything to me. Like, you're talking about the scene where everyone's rioting?
At the beginning, yeah.
See, I don't know. I thought that was just like the haze and riot like stuff. Just like the, ash and concrete dust in the air kind of thing. But nah, that didn't really affect anything for me. Did you feel the same way when they were outside on the roof?
I did, yeah.
Oh,
I
okay.
I thought all of that stuff looked really bad. I thought that the game of catch looked terrible.
I I tend to agree to an extent because in the behind the scenes they talk about like, oh well, none of us can actually catch the fucking ball, so we're doing this,
So
palming
why
the
did you
ball
do a
and making
game
it
of
appear.
catch?
Yeah, we're palming the ball and making it appear in our hand, and I'm like, and I think David even says, and hopefully you just won't even be able to notice, and I'm like, nah, I noticed.
We noticed. We absolutely fucking noticed, dude. When no one fucking ever throws the ball, we notice.
Yeah, so that was a little disappointing. I would tend to agree. It doesn't look the best, but at the same time, they're just going so. It's the most intense game of catch of all time. Fucking Shukti does the one-handed cartwheel and shit. So I don't care. I still loved it. That was all really fun. Okay, so we doing this? Are we doing? Is everyone ready to do this?
Oh, I think I'm really, really doing this.
Okay. All right. Who's the most negative on By Generation?
Probably me. You think
Okay.
that's the
Go for it.
It's probably Alpha, yeah.
It's probably Alpha.
All right. Go off, King.
See, like we've talked a lot about how this is very intentionally giving you all the prior Doctor Who and then very much ending it as an epilogue. Like very much like here's everything that's never been addressed. Let's get the fuck out of my TARDIS. We're moving on. Like we're leaving it in one spot and we're moving completely fresh with Shooty on Christmas Day. It's basically a reboot of the entire series, just so we can start again and we don't have to worry about this. And I'm sure there'll be callbacks down the line as always, but the same with the storytelling engine of the Time War, led for a fresh start. This is letting for a fresh start again for a new generation, for a new Doctor Who. Brilliant, love it, great. Shooty, absolutely phenomenal. He owns the scene as soon as he comes into it. He is completely charismatic, he's completely fun, he's completely different, and yet he still feels utterly the Doctor. He still feels exactly like you'd want the Doctor to do. I can see this guy have gravitas, I can see them have pathos, I can see them be funny, like everything about it is fantastic. So 100% on board with the casting. One of the most exciting things about the entire episode was getting just a little bit of that, just getting that last little bit to go. However, I do not believe that in order to achieve these goals and in order to make this thing, you needed to create an entirely new form of regeneration where Tennant is also in the scene as Shooty gets to show off him as the new Doctor, as the old fan favorite Doctor who, and I'll say it once so we don't have to say it again, is the popular white guy, is still around and doesn't have to leave. And then we spend the entire rest of the episode not on building up Shooty, and you could argue in a way this is building up Shooty because putting a rest to everything that came before it. Well, if that's the case, I think it's a very fucking ill-elegant way to build him up compared to every other Doctor of Regeneration, Doctor Showcase, where they got to do it very efficiently on their own. We get to do that with all this thing spent on making sure Tennant not only gets a very happy ending, gets his own TARDIS, which I think is a whole other thing of things where if we had left out the TARDIS, I would still not love it, but I would see, okay, he's on his own, he's retired. No, we have very specific mentions. He's still going on adventures. He's still being the Doctor. And he's on his own thing, and now we can go back to Tennant whenever we'd like to. And Russell T Davies doesn't say this in the episode, but I think it's worth mentioning because he's very vocal on social media, he's very vocal on the behind-the-scenes stuff, and often what he says is the case. So I do think, as though he may be joking when he says it, it's worth considering the idea that the bi-generation from this episode not only ensure that the 14th Doctor will still be around, but that at that moment, every single regeneration in the Doctor's history also bi-generated. So there are now timelines, or it's in the same timeline because 15 is still after 14, and 14 is going to become him at some point again. But however you square that hole, all the other doctors woke up after their regeneration. Seventh's in the morgue. He walks out. He's like, "Oh, I'm not Paul McGann. I'm still me. I'm around." 10 walks out. I didn't want to go. Oh, I didn't have to go. Capaldi wakes up. Is like, "Oh fuck, I just want to fucking die already." So like, everyone wakes up and has now their own things, and the whole execution of it, whatever you want to give it to, I just don't like it. I just fundamentally think it was a bad call. It's not going to ruin the show for me. I'm going to ignore it as we move on, but I really, 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 really hope this is just a one-off for this specific story, and this doesn't become the new trend going forward purely for the sake of having more franchise opportunities where you can have more multi-Doctor crossovers because no actor ever has to leave again.
Okay. Steve?
I am pretty close to how negative Alfie is on it. I said after the episode was over, I feel like the giggle is going to make for like a really great 4,000 word essay on the history of revival Doctor Who and what it's doing for the series and how it's an epilogue to that era and the start of a new era. But it's not going to age very well as a thing you want to watch after a certain amount of time. And I do still kind of believe that, where I get what it's doing, and I mean, I've been talking about what the series has been doing this whole review, where I feel like the intention is very clear. I don't think Doctor Who was ever a specifically subtle enterprise by any stretch. But the bi-generation thing makes something textual that has kind of always been assumed from the very beginning, which is that the multiple doctors are always just running around because it's time travel. You want more Matt Smith adventures than you can have him in fucking Big Finish or comics or whatever, and you don't have to explain how there's more Matt Smith stuff after he dies because he's a time traveler. You can just set it anywhere in his tenure and it works. But every time a doctor dies and regenerates, you get like that really beautiful moment where they get the opportunity to, both as an actor and as a character, separate off. And you get the actor saying goodbye to the role just as the doctor is saying goodbye to the person he was and letting the new one dive in. And I feel like the whole concept of bi-generation, as Davies has talked about, where every doctor does this now, really undercuts that idea. And you have opened up a can of worms here, where even if David Tennant never comes back, even if you never bring up this quote-unquote Doctorverse ever again, even if you say that the goal was never to like MCUify the Doctor Who characters, you have created the door for it, and someone is going to do it down the line. And I think that's just a fundamentally bad idea. I don't agree with Alfie necessarily that I think Chuti got short-shifted by regenerating alongside Tennant, because I think there is a lot to be said for the idea that this is the only time you get to see a past and present version of the Doctor effectively kind of sign off with each other, that you get the opportunity for a Doctor to pass the torch to the next Doctor, and you get to have this moment where Tennant is both equals with the new Doctor, and as the fan favorite Doctor that everyone loves, that everyone thinks is the best, get to say that guy's the new Doctor. I think that does carry a lot of weight, especially when you talk about what you said earlier, where like maybe Davies is putting all of the stuff that people are going to be angry about later in these first 3 episodes to get it out of the way with. I think a big part of doing that would be, let's make Tennant the lightning rod. You hate the trans character, you hate the idea that the Doctor uses they them pronouns, you hate the idea of everything that these episodes have been doing. Well, hate all of that and then channel that hate at David Tennant, who you can't possibly hate because he's the Doctor everyone loves. In his infinite charisma and being able to withstand that, you also have him introducing the new Doctor to the rest of the world, and I think setting him off on a much better foot than he may have if he just had to enter it and avoid. I do genuinely think it was kind of sweet and nice that the David Tennant, Mel, and Donna got to like hold Tennant's hands as he was regenerating and greet the new Doctor, and everyone got to stand kind of in awe of him for a moment. I thought all of that was cute and good, and I like what the bi-generation is doing thematically. I just think that this is curling the monkey's paw. This is opening a can of worms that you never should have opened, and I think in like 10 years you're going to regret this when we do the Spider-Man No Way Home of Doctor Who stories.
Yeah, so like you agree with me on the ramifications outside the series, but we disagree on it in the episode itself. Okay.
Yes, exactly.
Okay. So I fucking loved it. And not just in the, yes, David Tennant gets his happy ending kind of thing, because honestly, I didn't know that it was going to happen. I try not to spoil myself on stuff, and I'm always so glad I do for moments like this, because, you know, there's just that scene of him, you know, falling on his knees, and the glowing, and Donna and Mel are there, and he's like, this is it. Alonzi, I'm like, oh, he didn't even say I don't want to go. Yay! It's like a good, like, proper send-off, and now Shooty's gonna come in and beat this motherfucker up. I'm so hyped. And then it just all fades away, and I'm like, wait, what? And then he goes, pull, and it's just so silly and goofy, and then they start pulling, and just, holy shit, David Tennant's got a black guy in him. So it's just the pure joy of getting to see that moment unfold on screen without any real idea of what it was going to be, what was going to happen, and then the explanation of, I bi-generated, which isn't actually even theoretically possible, but I did it, is so fucking cool. And of course, Shukti just comes out with just the most fucking personality in the world, and I love it to death. Absolute top tier Doctor Who energy, and it's so fun. So I really, really, really appreciated that side of it. What you guys are talking about with like the long-term implications for the series, yeah, maybe, but we're kind of fucking already there. They've been doing Big Finish stuff with the Doctors for literal decades now. They've reintroduced the older Doctors on film all the way back in Tennant's era with Peter Davison, with the 50th anniversary with Tom Baker, and now just in the lead up to this, they've reintroduced them in the memory TARDIS bits. The thing in the Flux episode with the Guardians of the Edge, the old faces of the Doctor at the edge of the Doctor's personality and mind. Jodie's whole last episode of being able to force a regeneration so she could come back and be her again instead of the Master. Like, all of this, we're kind of already there, in the sense of, well, if they want to bring back the old ones, they're going to do it anyway. This might just be a more convenient excuse. So, you know, kind of whatever. So that's my reaction to that side of it. The thing that I thought was really, really interesting is initially, and I only kind of pieced this together in my own head, continuity-wise, is I initially thought that Davies kind of contradicted his own continuity, because a big point of the episodes that we see here, and Donna makes it, is literally, we haven't stopped. So, like, everything that happens, or let's back this up to point of regeneration, with Jodie regenerating into David Tennant, it is at sunset. Next time we see David Tennant's when he's crashed into the Genesis of the Daleks for all of 5 minutes. And then after that, we get him arriving on the streets of London at night. Meets Donna. Everything that happens with the Meep happens over the course of a night I don't remember if I mentioned it, but Jodie regenerates at sunset. Everything that happens with the Meep happens over the course of a night. The next morning, they go and they go in the TARDIS, and that's where we get the Wild Blue Yonder. That episode is arguably all in real time. I don't think we have any moments or cuts or anything that happens that establish that they've been here for a long time. It's all pretty much in real time in the 40 minutes or so that they are on the ship. And then they kind of show back up on the streets of London again. It's still that next day or just a couple days after, but as far as Tennant's timeline goes, it is literally not even been 24 hours since regeneration for him. And when the 10th Doctor regenerated, Davies added something pretty substantial to the lore, which was for the first 24 hours after regeneration, the Doctor cannot be wounded or hurt or killed. Moffat pretty much doubled, tripled, quadrupled down on that when he had River Song get fucking lit up by a bunch of Nazis. And she bounced the bullets back at them in the form of regeneration energy. So when we got to the scene of the bi-generation and Tennant's been shot in the chest, I'm like, well, no, he shouldn't die because he's still within that 24 hours, isn't he? And so I was sitting there thinking, and I'm like, no, yeah, he definitely is. So then the bi-generation coming, as I mentioned earlier, as both a like emotional catharsis reaction, but also as kind of a result of you cannot actually kill the Doctor within that first 24 hours post regeneration. I thought was just a really interesting kind of feather in the cap. This is the one and only time it can happen. Now, as far as Davies talking about it outside of the show and other stuff, burn that bridge when we get to it. I do think you're absolutely right, Steve. Someone will eventually do it. I don't think that they needed this to do it. I think it was just going to happen regardless, and this might just be a really convenient excuse. Particularly with the way that the older actors just have not been able to develop too much of a career outside of, I played the Doctor for a couple of years. Try as they might. And poor Matt Smith seems to be on that track record. I'm sorry, Matt. I love you, but goddamn, please be in a good movie. So yeah, that's kind of my general reaction and thoughts to just the bi-regeneration in and of itself. I don't know how I feel about the TARDIS thing. It was, I'm tempted to say I fucking love it just because we won the game. You get a prize, honey. It's just so fucking cool. It's like, if swag was a person, it would be that. So yeah, that's my thoughts on the bi-regeneration. So, get on my level.
Okay. I think you make some good points in. I think the lore thing you mentioned up as well is definitely, I don't think you're reaching for that. I think that's probably, given how much fucking RTD breathes and lives Doctor Who, I have to imagine that definitely was on his mind when he was scripting these episodes of like, let's keep this all within a day. Let's just have this extra little nugget for the fucking Ians of the world, because he's in your car, he knows what you think, like. Make sure you give him a wave next time. But like, I understand all of that. I like all of that, and I think as many explanations as you give, and if this ends up becoming a problem in the future, like you say, again, we live in a post-Timeless Child world. Any affection for Doctor Who, it's always changed. It's always made up new rules. So you're right about that. I think I only reboot a little bit is we have been maybe just lucky, or we've been aware of what the show is about kind of conceptually, where, and we've talked about this a lot with Steve, of like how Doctor Who is very rare amongst this current type of IP things, where we've already had the multiple actors from the past in each other thing, and we've had those stories, and we've reviewed those stories, and we've already had pretty elegant solutions, and we always find a way to come up with them. Even if it's convenience, convenience is almost like the death of Doctor Who, right? Doctor Who almost kind of lives from the contradictions and forcing a way for something to work, where you have to get a little bit more creative, where you have to get something that isn't afforded to these other franchises, where it's the easy mode, where it is the multiverse, where it is this easy kind of switch. It makes Doctor Who a little less special. We're taking away something that's unique to Doctor Who with Regeneration, the idea that we can recast within the story, but at the same time, and Peter Capaldi's got a really cool video about this, where he talks about that Doctor Who's kind of fundamentally about death. So for many children, it's their first exposure with death. And yes, the Doctor gets to continue on, he gets to move on, but some of the most powerful things in the world will be that idea of the Doctor you know. Even if he will be in a big Finish thing, even if he will appear in a special, it's not quite the same. He is gone. He is not the Doctor anymore. And I do think it didn't fully cross it. I think because fucking Ncuti is just so fucking good at his job that he does kind of overshadow David Tennant because he's here. And I think we got very lucky with that casting, being able to him to pull that off, despite how nerve-wracking that must have been. If you're first seeing the Doctor, not only do you have to be the Doctor or win everyone over, you have to outshine everyone's favorite Doctor. You're really setting him up there. So, trial by fire, he's not going to be nervous for any of the scene he ever has to do. So I guess that's a smart thing, if that was intentional. But it's just, I think the idea of death and the Doctor facing that and having some form of finality with you and the audience and you and the error of the show is one of my favorite things about it. So even if this is okay, and even if we move past this fine, I do bristle up against it, if that makes sense. You know, it does make me feel a little bit like, are we taking this for granted a little bit? Are we messing with something that it doesn't have to be sacred, but what we gain from it, are we losing something really powerful in return?
No, I agree with you completely there. I think that's sort of the scare here is within the episode itself, the whole idea of what the fuck by generation is and what lines you pull from screenshots to help explain it is kind of vague. And maybe if we had someone like the showrunner talk about what it is and what it signifies, you'd be more comfortable. But then every time RTD talks about it, he just kind of makes me hate it even more. Because it's one thing if it's like the idea is 14 is just eventually going to become 15, and we're just doing, like he says, we're just doing therapy out of order, and so like there is still finality to it. Every Doctor in the history of Doctor Who didn't bi-generate. It's just this regeneration came out early, and this previous one's gonna die soon. Don't worry about it. But that's not what he said. What he said was now every Doctor has now splintered off into their own Doctor Whoverse, and that did not do anything to ease my concerns over this, especially because, yeah, I think there is something important to the idea that the Doctor as a character always dies at the end of a run. And right now, especially when we're in this sort of media culture of nothing old can die, nothing can have finality, everything has to come back and be callbacks over and over and over again, that everything has to build towards the next plot, and you can't just kind of do these sort of individual artist-driven stories. Doctor Who is kind of special in that every run kind of does that. As much as I don't like the Jodie era is its own statement on the character from its own creator, and then before that there was the Moffat era, and before that there's RTD. Like there are cycles here, and doing something where you cheapen the impact retroactively of each of these Doctors dying because of a concept like this, I think that is a mistake on a narrative level, especially because what you're saying, Ian, of what we've been doing for years is already there. It didn't need a more convenient justification, because you don't need justification when your main character is a time traveler. You can do a story whenever you want because he's a fucking time traveler. You don't need another reason for it. In my mind, when you say something like every Doctor has bi-generated, I'm thinking of Matt Smith saying, I will always remember when the Doctor was me. And then he's just looking at fucking Peter Capaldi and he's like, well, that was weird. Anyway, continuing on. That's really, really dumb. Don't give me that image in my mind. That's really fucking dumb.
Which I think
I don't think that's a good idea.
Which, I mean, again, it's so weird to me because I have actually not even seen where he said this. I'm not doubting that you guys are, like, I'm not calling into question that he has. It sounds like some shit Davies would say. My thing is, like, I viewed it, I consumed it within the context of the episode itself. And so I can only talk about what I thought of the episode itself and my reactions to that. With what you guys are saying, yeah. My thing is, if he's going to touch the other doctors, I trust him to do a better job than literally what you just said, Steve. So
I mean, I would hope.
You know, like, that's the thing, is I trust the creator well enough to do just a better job. Here's the other thing that I really, really appreciate about Bi Regeneration that I guess I hadn't really, like, considered before. But I did appreciate just how new and inventive it was within the context of what the previous two showrunners did with Regeneration. Because there's, like, love it or hate it, Bi Generation is completely new, completely unique, never been even dreamed of before. At least as far as I'm aware. I've watched a good bit of Doctor Who now. Whereas what Chibnall did to try to, like, quote-unquote, permanently fix the regeneration problem is just rooted super hard in old Doctor Who continuity. It all comes back to that time that Tom Baker is battling Morbius, the Time Lord Frankenstein monster, and Morbius starts pulling up all of these old faces that the doctors had, and Romana is changing her, or is regenerating like 4 times in 5 minutes, or 4 times in 2 minutes, just because she doesn't feel like looking like Romana 1 anymore, and she wants to look like the girl from the last adventure they had. So that's, like, Chibnall's trying to fucking square that fucking peg. And then you kick it back further and you look at Moffat, and he does this huge thing connected to the Time Lords, like giving him more regenerations, and it's about what brings Gallifrey back and blah 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 blah. It's like this super continuity thing, and I legitimately love that one. The Timeless Children, not so much, but I legitimately love that one for just being, you know, so dedicated to trying to find a way to undo this Gordian knot and keep the series going and solve the problem of 13 regenerations. I really, truly do. But watching this, I just have so much more respect for Russell T Davies going, nah, fuck it, I'm just going to do whatever the fuck I want. And just going so hard and doing something that is going to make people talk, is going to make people sit there and go, wait, no, what, how? But it's just fundamentally creates a reaction of, what? And again, I watched this episode with my daughter, with my 3-year-old, last night. It's her first time watching it, and David Tennant gets a fucking laser through his fucking chest, and she goes, what happened? And then he starts falling on the ground, and he's on his knees and crying, and his friends come over, and she goes, is he died? Is he died? And I go, yeah, he's dying. And then the regeneration energy goes away, and she's like, and then they pull him apart, and the 2 doctors are there, and literally her reaction was to throw her hands up in the air, smile, and clap above her head. And that fundamentally is exactly the kind of reaction I think you need and you want. Is something new, something novel, something different, something that just makes a kid watching this, who has not watched a lot of Doctor Who, mind you. She's watched 4 episodes, including this one, just beam with energy. Is exactly what you need for a series like this. Long-term implications, the MCU-ifying of Doctor Who, I'm not going to argue with you because you're certainly right. The potential for misuse is there. Frankly, I think we're kind of dreaming if we think that it hasn't already been misused before this. Is kind of where I'm going to just leave my piece on that one. I can't really argue with you, and I don't think you can really argue with me on that one.
One thing I'll say to your point, though, that I do really like is the whole premise of the third episode is the rules that bind the toy maker. And that how he's breaking the rules of reality by stepping here in the first place. That Tennant essentially tempted fate by coming up with the superstation at the edge of the universe. And like you said, Doctor Who, in the last few years, has been really trying to untangle this knot of regeneration and giving itself room to grow and continue because it's bound by the rules of its own premise and it doesn't know how to untangle that. So coming up with an episode with a whole character whose concept is that he breaks the rules of reality, and you use that to create a situation where a myth of bi-generation can be used to break the rules of your fundamental concept and do something new, is narratively really, really interesting. And I think it again speaks to the whole sort of like mission statement of all three of these specials, which is we have kind of gone full circle in the revival era of Doctor Who. Everything from Eccleston showing up and talking about the Time War to the Timeless Child and the Flux has created sort of one circular moment for the Doctor as a character where he's gone from one trauma and piece of baggage, overcome it, and then entered another one. And now he's kind of stuck, and that sort of has the danger of becoming a new set of rules of like the Doctor always being a tragic figure, the Doctor always having some level of baggage. And at the same time, you have to spend all this time trying to figure out how do you use all of the iconography of Doctor Who consistently and stick to the established rules all the time. And in most situations, you can't. You just kind of have to fumble them to get through your story. And so here you do something where you contrive a situation that allows you to break them so that you can set up your new character as none of the old rules have to apply anymore. The rules are there so that you have a framework, but you don't have to be bound to them. And that this new Doctor that's going off on his adventure is freed of all the baggage that came from the past constraints of both the character and the concept. And again, I think within the confines of the episode, all of that stuff is actually really good and really interesting. But that's sort of what I go back to at the beginning, where I would love to sit down and write like 4,000 words on like what's going on in this episode and kind of break it down on an academic level. But if I'm gonna watch the episode, I'll probably stop watching after the Doctor bi-generates because I don't care to watch after that.
Oh, I'm sad.
And I love Chuti. I think he's great. I think he does an incredible job. But bi-generation just kind of felt as a concept a bridge too far for me, and I think you could have done this exact thing. And if Davies was less keen on hyping up the implications of it, I'd be less afraid of them. And if it wasn't for the fact that David Tennant gets to have a happy Doctor ending for like the third time, I would have been happier with it.
I don't know. I thought it was interesting that it's not just David Tennant having a happy Doctor ending. It's the fact that like he represents kind of the old order, the Hartnell to Jodie, and obviously Tennant double down on there, triple, quadruple down. Like that saga of the Doctor's life, and this is fully a new chapter. So it's like that side is stopping, that side is done, it's being put to bed now. And again, the thing that I'm just super impressed by, I'm not sure if it's his very first line, but it's one of his first lines, is "I'm all me." And I thought that was just really interesting of 15 is the Doctor without baggage.
Yeah.
I thought it was just really such a cool fucking concept of, no, not the baggage of the Time War, not the baggage of the Flux. Side note, that I didn't get to mention earlier, the way that Davies talks about the Flux is so much fucking cooler than the Flux. God damn it!
Yep.
It's like the ultimate argument for not throwing anything out is just using it because you can find a way to make it sound cool as fuck. And
Yeah.
I feel so bad for the people who are gonna watch. They're like, oh, I gotta see what that was about.
No, that's the thing, right? It's like after David Tennant starts talking about the Flux in the second episode, people start posting like, "What's the Flux?" And everyone in the replies is like, "Don't worry about it. If you thought the Flux was cool, that's all you need to hear. Nothing needs to be reviewed. You don't have to go back to those episodes."
Like Davy or not Davies. Davies clearly doesn't hate it, but he knows how to make it work in a way that's just so much better. It kind of reminds me of when I watched the Tennant episodes of the Sarah Jane Adventures, and you got the trickster there, and he's like the man who held the key to time. It's like, God, that sounds so much cooler than when Tom Baker's literally holding the key to time.
Yeah, I mean, I think one thing you can say consistently about this is that I think there was probably a healthy skepticism one could have when RTD decided to come back to Doctor Who, because you're introducing, again, this notion of, are we going backwards? You're bringing David Tennant back, you're bringing RTD back. If the fundamental philosophy of Doctor Who is that it always moves forward, this seems like not a good idea. But between these 3 episodes and with what Davies is doing with the 15th Doctor as being a Doctor free of baggage, who is a completely different version of the character and under a completely different conceit than when he revived the show back in 2005, I think now you're getting the argument that this is a guy that still has something to say with this character, and he's gotten enough goodwill over enough years that I'm kind of just inclined to let him run with it and see what happens. So I still do lean more positive when it comes to the episode that like this is probably a good idea, because I think it's just RTD giving himself runway to do something new, and I trust that he could do something good with the runway he's given himself because of past experience with him. My hesitation and my worry is just that now that this concept is out there, I don't know if you needed it to get to this specific story that you wanted to tell, and I think the potential for it to become a problem in lesser hands is much greater than you need it to have.
I mean, I can't disagree with that, but I challenge you to come up with any example where that is not something that you could say about, like, long-running show developments. Because, like, we've seen bad writers take really good ideas and run them into the fucking ground. Much less bad writers taking sketchy ideas and running them into the ground. I guess I'm just more positive and not as worried about it. Again, like, the larger implications, what you guys have talked about, him saying outside the borders of the episode, can't really argue with you on it. I don't love those ideas either. I do think that it might... My only thing is just, I think it might be blowing it a little bit out of proportion given what the actual state of affairs has been. Since the... Not even since the show's revival. Since the show's cancellation. So, there's my thoughts on that. Do we have anything else we want to talk about with Doctor Who, the David Tennant specials, Part 2?
I really like the new TARDIS. The new TARDIS is cool.
Dude, that fucking scene. I don't know what you were talking about with the ADR thing. I did not have any trouble with that. Just that moment of David Tennant running around. Like, I'm pretty sure they just had David Tennant come on the set and filmed him. So maybe you're just... The audio problem you're hearing is maybe you're just hearing the microphone people trying to keep up with his ass as he runs around the fucking thing. That was so cute.
Yeah, the new TARDIS is really fucking clean, and I love the little jukebox in the corner. I think it's really cool.
My thing with the new TARDIS is I liked it, but I kind of got that same vibe of like when Matt Smith got the proto version of Capaldi's TARDIS. It just felt a little empty. with Tenet, and I'm kind of waiting to see what they do with 15 and like how he kind of messes it up a little bit, you know?
Yeah, put some bookcases in there, some wardrobes, a fucking hot tub. Like, just put this big enough. You can put a lot of shit on those walkways.
Yeah, yeah. That's kind of the thing I'm waiting for is just to see if it's gonna stay that crisp and clean because I did just get that same vibe as Matt Smith's TARDIS kind of thing. It helps that Tennant's only got it for, you know, not even 2 full episodes.
He's in there like 30 seconds before Donna spills coffee on the console.
It was brand new.
It was as brand new as you physically could get. That's great.
Yeah, it's good shit. It's good shit. All right, are we done? Are we good? Are we good?
I think we're all good, fellas.
Okay. Let's see here. So this episode's going up on the 17th, which means the next episode would go up on the 24th. So Steve, you want to pick something, or no, you pick this one. So I'm gonna pick something for us, and then we'll do the we'll double up next week. We'll do the next episode, and we'll do a commentary next week. Sound good?
Yeah, we can just record them both the same night if you want.
Yep, that'll work for me. Alright, what do I want to fucking talk about? There was something Christmassy. Oh, that's right. We promised we'd talk about this last Christmas, and then we forgot, and luckily I remembered because it showed up on Prime today. Steve, you and I, we're going to talk about Violent Night.
Oh shit! I saw that in theaters!
Yeah, me too.
Forgot about that movie.
Yeah, so we're going to talk about that next week, and then we'll do the Christmas commentary on Jack Frost 2, Attack of the Mutant Killer Snowman, or Return of the Mutant Killer Snowman, whatever it is. Alfie can just cry over in the corner of missing out on that cinematic masterpiece.
I'll weep my tears. You've ruined my Christmas. I can't believe you've done this.
Yeah, you could just sit there with your wife, cozy, and your presents under the tree and stuff, and you just sit there and think, man, I could be talking about Jack Frost 2, Return of the Mutant Killer Snowman, but instead I'm here. I'm in the wrong timeline.
I already get no sleep, and this is what you've done.
Alfie, you know what you must do. You have to buy Generate so that there's a second Alfie to do the commentary with.
I'm pretty sure I did sometime, but instead of like the rehab in reverse, he just got like trauma in reverse.
He was born into trauma.
It's like I bi-generated into like McGann. I just suffered a lot off screen.
I was just gonna hope you were saying bi-generated into Bane.
Oh no!
I was born into the darkness, molded by it.
That's not the shadow I was born in, it just kind of looks like me.
Alright. Everyone, thank you so much for watching. Until next time, I'm the Philosopher.
I am the champion of Christmas.
And I am looking forward to Jack Frost.
And we are your geeky gentlemen, and we will be discussing things.